What's going on, guys? Welcome back to today's video. Today we're going to go over the thinking process, the thought process behind finishing the section 3 in just 5 minutes. How this video is going to play out is, first I'm going to show you what the question is, and second I'm going to show you the detailed work step by step behind each question and why I did certain things, and then I'm going to show you the fast version from the original video so you can kind of watch it and then kind of follow along what I did. Okay, there's the first question, and let's take a second and read out what the question is. So it gives us two equations right there, and question says, for the system of equations above, what's the value of x plus y? Okay, so in general, if they ask you for an expression, as in like two things at the same time, you usually want to find it as a whole. Okay, but in this case, numbers are not working out as evenly as I thought, so what I did was I just found out x and y individually. Okay, so how I found out individually was you can do that through either substitution or elimination. But for me, I prefer elimination, so I did elimination in this case. So I did 2x minus y is equal to 8, and x plus 2y is 4. So I'm going to multiply the bottom equation by 2 so that the x's are matching up, and which will allow me to cancel out the x's. So if you multiply the bottom by 2, you get 2x plus 4y is equal to 8. Okay, and if you look at it, now all the x's are matching up, which means I can subtract the bottom equation and cross out the x's, which becomes 0. Minus y minus 4y is going to be minus 5y. And 8 minus 8 is going to be equal to 0, which means y is going to equal 0. And we know what the y is now. Y is 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug y back into one of the equations and find out what the x is. Okay, I'm going to plug it to the second equation right here. X plus 2, 0 is equal to 4, which means x is equal to 4. And x is 4, x plus y is going to be 4. Okay, that's why the answer was B. Okay, second question. Second question is asking us to find out which of the following is equivalent to this freaking expression right here. And if you're looking for something equivalent to this, what you have to do is just express it. Distribute it. Okay. So how do you distribute it? You just multiply 2 into this expression right there and 3 into this expression right there, which becomes 2x squared minus 2x plus 3x squared minus 3x. And that's equal to 5x squared minus 5x, which is the answer, A. Ooh, that's hard to see. Okay, so the third question is asking us to find out which of the following statement is true about the graph of the equation this in the xy plane. Okay, so I read the question and I was like, I wonder what they mean. And I looked at the answer choices, and turns out that what they're testing is negative or positive slope and positive or negative y-intercept, which means I need to know what the slope and what the y-intercept was. And how can we know what the y-intercept and slope is? By putting them into a slope-intercept form. Okay, and that's going to be y is equal to mx plus b. M is going to be the slope, and b is going to be, well, the y-intercept. Okay, so as long as I can put the equation in y equals mx plus b form, I'm going to be able to tell what the slope is and what the y-intercept is, and find out what the answer is going to be. So let's do that. 2y minus 3x is equal to minus 4, and add 3x, it becomes 2y is equal to 3x minus 4, and divide both sides by 2. Y is equal to 3 over 2x minus 4 over 2, which is 2. Okay, so this equation tells me that our slope is going to be positive, which means I can cross out choice A and B, and our y-intercept is going to be negative, or our b is going to be negative. So positive y-intercept, no, C is out. D is going to be my answer. Okay, next question. Let's read the question. The front of the roller coaster is at the bottom of the hill and is 15 above the ground. Okay, so it's 15 feet above the ground, and if the front of the roller coaster car rises at a constant rate, okay, constant rate of 8 feet per second, which of the following equation gives the height in feet of the roller coaster car s seconds after it starts up the hill, right? So if you look at the answer choices, they just want you to express this scenario in terms of an equation. So how can we start with this? Well, the question tells us that it's rising at a constant rate. And if it's rising at a constant rate, that means it's going to be a linear rate, right? And if it's a linear rate, we can put that into linear form, right? Linear form is just a fancy word for like putting it into some kind of line, right? And line can be put into y equals mx plus b form, which is the slope intercept form. And if you look at the question, they're all in that specific form, okay? So how do we put that into slope intercept form? Need to know what the m is, need to know what b is, okay? And the question tells us that it starts at 15 feet above the ground, which means that's going to be the starting point. Okay, that's going to be the starting point, which is going to be 15. And starting point is when your time, which is in seconds for this question, which is in 0. Okay, and when the time is in 0 and you're at 15, that's going to be your y-intercept. Okay, so we already know from the start that it's going to look something like y equals mx plus 15. And if you look at all the answer choices, it doesn't look like that. C, B, only one that has that is going to be A. Okay, and just to double confirm, the slope, what's our slope going to be? Well, slope is how much you're changing every second. And question tells us that you're rising at 8 feet per second, which means our m is also going to be 8, and that confirms A right there. So our answer is going to be A. Next question. All right, so another word problem. The equation above gives the amount of C in dollars an electrician charges for a job that takes H hours. Okay, so C is going to be the total cost, and then H is going to be number of hours it takes. Okay, and Ms. Sanchez and Mr. Rowland each hired this electrician, and the electrician worked 2 hours longer, okay, on Sanchez's job and Mr. Rowland's job. How much more did the electrician charge Ms. Sanchez than Rowland, right? So thing is, our cost is dependent on how many hours they work, and that hour is directly multiplied to 75, which means that person is charging $75 per hour. Because if they worked 1 hour, they're going to do $75 plus 125. 2 hours is going to be 150 plus 125, and 150 comes from 75 times 2. Okay, so we know that the hourly rate is going to be 75, and if the person worked 2 hours longer, that means they're gonna do $150 more for that job. Therefore, the answer is going to be C. Okay. Okay, next question. The circle above has a center O and the length of arc ADC. Okay, so ADC, this portion right there, ADC is going to be 5 pi, right? And it tells us that X is going to be 100. So our angle is 100 and arc length is going to be 5 pi. And what's the length of a arc ABC? Okay, so there's 2 ways that you can go about doing it. So first way is finding radius and using arc length formula. Okay, because we're dealing with arc length, which means we're definitely going to use arc length formula. Arc length formula is given by the equation. Arc length is 2 pi r, which is the circumference, times theta, or which is angle, divided by 360. Okay, so you can kind of work these details backward, plug 5 pi into your arc length and your 100 into the radius, the theta, and you can find out what the radius is, and you can find how long this is by doing this again. But that would take way too long. So what we're going to do, what we also know is that arc length are proportional. Okay, which means we can set up a proportion. Okay, so how does that look? Well, let's see. For 5 pi, it was 100 degrees, right? And we're trying to find out the arc length of ABC. So ABC is going to be responsible for that angle right there. And since x is 100, this angle right here is going to be 260. Remember, circle's total angle is 360. So x is 100, subtract 100, you're left with 260, and that's going to be how much that angle is right there, okay? So coming back here again, 5 pi is 100 degrees, which means we're trying to find out how much it is for 260 degrees, because 260 degrees is where angle arc length ABC is lying at, okay? So how do we find out ABC? Just cross multiply, because fraction equal to fraction, always cross multiply. So you get 100 is equal to 5 pi times 260, and if you do that on your calculator or in your head, maybe in your head or on paper, because this is section 3, you can use calculator, it becomes out 1300 pi, which is 100, okay? Sorry, 1300 pi, 100x is 1300 pi, okay? And to find x, what you need to do is divide it by 100, which will be x is equal to 1300 pi divided by 100, and if you see zeros, just cancel them out, which is 13 pi over 1, which is just 13 pi. Okay, so that tells us that the arc length of ABC when the angle is 260, okay, oh, that was a bad arrow. When it's 260, it's going to be 13 pi. So our answer is going to be 13 pi. So on the way there, you guys kind of saw how I wrote 360 at first, but I kind of realized like in the middle of doing this that the angle for ABC is going to be 260, so I just did 260 instead. Okay, next question. 8 over x is equal to 160. What's the value of x, right? So this is a relatively simple question. We're looking for x, and x is down here. So we just need to isolate x to find out the answer, okay? So it becomes 8 is equal to 160x. Let me start over. So 8 over x is equal to 160. So what we do is we multiply by x. We multiply by x on both sides, which becomes, cancels out right there. 8 is equal to 160x. And to find x, divide by 160 to leave x alone. And x will now become 8 over 160, which is same thing as 1 over 20. Okay, just in case you guys are wondering how I got that so quickly, it's just 8 over 16 is 1 over 2, right? Because 8 times 2 is 16. But there's another 0 right there, so I just added 0 here, and I just added 0 there, and boom, 1 over 20. Okay, and we know 1 over 20 is going to be a decimal because we are dividing a 1 into 20 different pieces. So there's no way it's going to be 1280, 80, or 20. It can only be 0.05. Okay, next question. So it says in the equation above, a is a constant, and if no value of x satisfy the equation, what's the value of a? So important for you to know here is, what does it mean to no value of x satisfy the equation? Okay, let me give an example. Let's say we have 2x plus 10 is equal to 2x plus 11. Would this equation ever work? No, because if you subtract 2x, x's go away and you're left with 10 is equal to 11 and 10 is not equal to 11, right? So what that means is if your x's are the same, but if the numbers are different, that means there's not going to be a solution, no solution. Okay, so different number, same x. Then that's what leads to no solution. And that's exactly what we're going to do in this case. Okay, so 2ax minus 15 is equal to 3x plus 15 plus 5x minus 5, just distributing. And that simplifies down to 3x plus 5x, 8x plus 10 is equal to ax plus 5, right? So what we saw back here was that if the x's are the same, but numbers different, there's not going to be a solution. So our numbers are different, but we want our x's to be the same. So what we're going to do, we're going to come up with an a that makes the same as 8x. Okay, so 2ax, we want them to be equal to 8x. So divide by 2x, a is equal to 4. And when a is equal to 4, there will not be any solution. There will be no solution that satisfies the equation. So what our answer is going to be 4. All right, next question. A system of 3 equations is graphed in the xy plane above. How many solutions does the system have? Okay, so we're looking for how many solutions it has, and solution in a system of graph is going to be the intersection. Okay, so when there are 2 graphs, we want an intersecting point between 2 graphs. Okay, however, when there are 3 graphs, we want the intersection between all 3 graphs. So this one is where all 3 of the graphs are intersecting. This one is where only 1 and 2 of them are intersecting. Same thing here, and so on. So how many intersections do we have? How many solutions to the system do we have? We only have 1, because that's where all the lines cross, and that's the only point. So we only have 1 solution. All right, next question. The equation above is true for all values of x where a and b are constants, which means it's just going to be numbers, right? What's the value of ab? Okay, so I saw this question, I asked myself, okay, where can I find ab? And I saw that there was a here and there was b here. And the only way to make a and b into ab, just one term, is by multiplying these two together. And when you multiply them together, you get minus abx squared, okay? And ab is just going to be a coefficient of x squared, right? It's a number in front of x squared. So I look at the other side, and which one has x squared? It was minus 9x squared, right? And then I ask myself, it's gotta be minus 9. But I don't see any minus 9s anywhere, right? So what did I do? I go back here and check if there was I go back on this side and see if there was another term with x squared. And turns out there was 3 times 5x squared, and that if you do that, it gives you plus 15x squared, right? So I added that in there, plus 15x squared. Okay, so I checked one more time for to see if there was anything else, and there was nothing else. So I did this, and if you look at it, minus ab plus 15 should equal minus 9. So I bring that into an equation. Minus ab plus 15 is equal to minus 9, which means minus ab is equal to, subtract 15, is equal to minus 24. And AB has to equal 24, which means our answer is going to be C. All right, next question. Which of the following represents all the possible values of x that satisfy the equation above? Okay, so we're looking for the value of x, which means we just have to isolate x from this equation thing right here. So how do we do that? Fraction is equal to fraction, and what do? We cross multiply. So 2x is equal to 2x times x minus 3, which becomes 2x is equal to 2x squared minus 6x. And if we're looking for value of x, we need to isolate x. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract 2x. That becomes 0 is equal to 2x squared minus 8x. Okay. And how do we find the value of x? We just factor out the common terms, which is 2x, x minus 4. And that tells us that x can be either 0 or 4. Okay. So x is equal to 0 or 4, and that's the answer, which is B. Okay, next question. Which of the following is equivalent to the expression above when x is greater than 0? So that's probably not that important right now. And if you look at the top, and if you compare the answers to the bottom, they just combine it into one term, and they all share the same bottom. Okay, that means we just need to know what the top is. Anyways, what we need to do is first combine. Okay, so 1 over 2x plus 1 plus, we want to have 5 in the same fraction, which means we're going to have to give it the same base. We multiply by 2x plus 1 top and bottom, which will be 5 times 2x plus 1 divided by 2x plus 1. Now they have the same base, so it's going to be 2x plus 1 is equal to 1 plus 5 2x plus 1, which is going to be, that's going to be 10x, 1 plus 10x plus 5 over 2x plus 1 which is going to be 10x plus 6 over 2x plus 1. And that's going to be our answer, which is D. Okay. All right, next question. The graph of the function f in the xy plane above is a parabola, so which the following defines the function f. And if you look at all the functions, it is in a specific form, and it is going to be a vertex form. Okay, and vertex form is equal to y is equal to ax minus h squared plus k, and h and k are going to be the x and y coordinate of the vertex. Okay, so we know our x and y coordinate of the vertex is going to be 3 and 1, which means 3 is going to be h and 1 is going to be k. So that tells us that our equation would look something like y is equal to ax minus 3 plus k, which is 1. And it has a minus in the middle, which means we can cross out all the pluses. And plus 1 really wouldn't help because everything else has plus 1. Okay, so now we're down to a and b, and we have to find out whether it has a 4 in the front or it has a 1 in the front. And how can we check that? We check that by plugging this point into one of these two equations and see which one works. Because this point right here is on the function, the equation should make sense when we plug this point in. That's just how equations work. So I plug it in, and I get 4 and 2 minus 3 squared plus 1 is equal to 5. And 2 minus 3 is going to be 4 parentheses minus 1 squared plus 1, which is going to be 1 times 4 plus 1 is going to be 4 plus 1, which is 5, right? So it does work. So that means our answer is going to be A. And next, I kind of just checked choice C just to make sure that I didn't make any mistakes on the way and make sure it didn't work. And it didn't work. So that's how I did it. All right, next one. It says, in which the following does the shaded region represent the solution set in xy plane to the system of inequalities above? Okay, so the solution set when you have two inequalities is going to be the overlapping shaded region. Okay, and if you look at all the choices, they all share the same graph, right? I mean, all the graphs look the same, they have the same y-intercept, and their slopes are all the same. So only thing we really have to know is whether they shade this side, shade this side, shade this side, or shade that side, okay? And how do we know which side is shades? Well, you just look at the equation, and if it's greater than, you shade the upper side. If it's less than, you shade the lower side. And first one is going to be y is greater than or equal to x plus 2, which means we're going to draw this line first, and we're going to shade the upper side because of this greater than sign right there. So x plus 2 looks something like this, and we're going to shade the upper side, right? So that's going to be for the first one. And second one, if you look at it, it says 2x plus 3y is less than or equal to 6. Y is not alone. Y has to be alone in order for you to decide, in order for you to know which side it shades. So what we're going to do is we're going to isolate the y, okay? So let's do that over here. 2x plus 3y is less than or equal to 6. So 3y is less than or equal to minus 2x plus 6 divided by 3. Y has to be less than or equal to minus 2/3 x plus 2. And the other line is this one, and obviously the slope is going to be negative, and it's going to be less than, which is going to be shading the lower side. So our equation, our graph is going to be this one right there, and it's going to shade the lower side because the y is less than, right? So the overlapping region is right there, and which one has that? Choice B. Next question. So question says, what's the set of all the solutions to the equation? Okay, so there's two ways that you can go about this. First one is you can just square both sides and isolate what x is equal to and then find out what the answer is. But based on my experience, when they give you the answers like that and there's only 2 numbers that you have to test, it's a lot faster for you to just kind of plug it in and see which ones work. So we're going to plug in -1 and 2. So let's try it. So -1. It's going to be square root of -1 plus 2 is equal to minus of -1. And that's going to be square root of 1 is going to equal to 1. So -1 works out. Okay. How about 2? Square root of 2 plus 2 is equal to -2, right? And square root of 4 is equal to -2. And that is not going to work. And square root of 4 is technically plus -2, right? And if it's plus -2, then -2 should work, right? But here's something you need to know. For SAT, square root of a something is always going to be positive. You never consider the negative portion. You only consider the positive. Some people ask, why is that? I don't know. That's not how SAT does it. So make sure you follow this rule. Make sure you remember this and don't make any mistakes next time. And since square root of x is always going to be positive, it can no longer be plus and minus. It can only be positive 2. And positive 2 is not equal to -2, so it doesn't work. Okay, so our only possible solution is -1, which makes our answer choice B. All right, next one. What's the volume in cubic centimeters of a right rectangular prism that has a length of 4, width of 9, and height of 10? Okay, so how do we find a volume of a prism, rectangular prism? It's going to be length times width times height. And we know our length is 4, and our width is 9, our height is 10, which means our answer is going to be 36 times 10, which is 360, and that's going to be our answer. If x satisfies the equation above, what is the value of 2x plus 1? Okay, so if you look at it, you can kind of recognize that 2x plus 1 is exactly half of 4x plus 2. So what do? We divide 4x plus 2, divide by 2, and we also divide the other side by 2. Then you're going to get 2x plus 1, which is equal to 2, and that's going to be your answer. Okay, so a little pro tip here is that, see, if the question is asking you to find like x, or find like 2y, or something like individually, then you want to find them like separately, okay? Here's what I mean by separately. If they're asking you to find y, then just find y and plug it in. Okay? That's gonna work most times. But let's say it's asking you to find an expression. Okay? Just like this case, they're not asking you to find 2x, they're asking you to find 2x plus 1. Okay? So what most people usually do is they find out what x is and they plug it in and they find out what it's equal to. But on SAT, a pattern that's been happening is that if they are asking you for an expression, it's a lot easier for you to just find them as a whole, just like I did. I didn't try to find out what x was. What I did was I tried to make this original equation into what they want. Okay, so that's what I mean by finding as a whole. Okay, so whenever you see an expression, make sure you guys try to find it as a whole. This works about 99.8% of the times. There will be some cases where they ask you for an expression, but you still have to find out what x is and then plug it in. Okay, but it works most of the times just by finding it as a whole. Okay, so that's it for this question. All right, next one. The figure above shows a complete graph of the function f in the xy plane. Okay, so that's graph of f. The function g, which is not shown, is defined by g of x, which is f of x plus 6. What's the maximum value of the function g? Okay, so whenever they're asking a value of a function, they're talking about the y value of the function. Okay, and we want this y value to be the maximum value of the function g, right? So how can we find that? Well, the question tells us that g of x is going to be f of x plus 6, okay? And f of x plus 6, that is going to be a vertical shift. Vertical shift meaning it's going to move the graph up or down, and because we're adding, it's going to go up 6 units, okay? So g of x's y value is going to be y value of f of x plus 6, okay? And what's the maximum value of f of x? It's going to be 2. Like that's the highest point for this graph, right? But if they're shifting it vertical shift up by 6, then our maximum value is going to be 8 because it's 2 here. And if you up it by 6, then it's going to be 8. Therefore, the maximum value of function g is going to be 8. All right, second to last question. The triangle PQR has a right angle Q. If sine of R is 4/5, what's the value of tan of P, right? So whenever they give you a geometry related question, I highly recommend you guys just draw it out. It's gonna help you visualize and it's gonna be a lot easier. So triangle PQR with a right angle Q. So PQR with a right angle Q. And it tells us that sine of R. So sine of R is going to be 4/5. And we know that from trigonometry, sine of theta, sine of something is going to be opposite over hypotenuse, right? And it tells us that sine of R is going to be 4/5, meaning our 4 is going to be the opposite, 5 is going to be hypotenuse. So opposite from angle R is going to be right there, which is 4, and hypotenuse is going to be 5. And what you realize here is that it's actually a 3, 4, 5 triangle. So how did we know that? It's just pure memorization. So whenever you see a right triangle, there's two things you want to remember. Okay, there's first one, which is just a 3, 4, 5 triangle, and there's also going to be a 5, 12, 13 triangle. So these last numbers are always going to be your hypotenuse. So let's say you saw a question like a triangle with like 5 and 12 here. Actually, that's not realistic. Let's say it was like 5 and 12 here. Then without doing the Pythagorean theorem, you can know that this is going to be 13. Okay, so these are the two things kind of, oh, that was bad. These are the two things you kind of want to remember, okay? But back to the question. So it's going to be a 3, 4, 5 triangle, and it's asking us to find tan of P, right? And we know that tangent is going to be 𝗤𝗲, which is opposite over adjacent, and P is going to be right here, and opposite is going to be 4, adjacent is going to be 3. Therefore, our answer is 4/3. All right, last question. The graph of the linear function f is shown in the xy plane above. The graph of the linear function g, which is not shown, is perpendicular to the graph of f, and it passes through point 1, 3. What's the value of g of 0? Okay, so here's a couple of things we know. We know that the graph of g is perpendicular, and it goes through that point 1, 3, and we're looking for g of 0, okay? So we know that our x value is going to be 0, and we want to find out what the y value is when x is 0. But in order for you to find that, you need to know what the equation is. That will be really helpful, because if you know the equation, you can just plug in 0 and find out what y is, and you got your answer right there. So how can we come up with an equation? Well, first of all, it tells us that g is a linear function, which means it's going to follow the mx plus b, which is the slope-intercept form, which has been coming up in this exam over and over again. Okay, so m is going to be your slope, and b is going to be your y-intercept. So let's try to find them. Can we find the slope? Slope is going to be, it says perpendicular, right? So perpendicular to function f, which means it's going to be a negative reciprocal of the slope of function f. Okay, so what's the slope of function f? Is left 1 up 2, which means it's going to be up 2 and left 1, so minus 1, which means our slope is going to be minus 2 for function f, right? Which means our function g's slope is going to be negative reciprocal, which means it's going to be it's going to be 1 over 2, okay? You just negate it, which becomes a positive 2, and you flip it, it becomes 1/2. So we know that our slope is going to be 1/2. So with the slope, it looks like this. Y is equal to 1/2 x plus b. And to find the y-intercept, we need to find out what x and y can be. And because the question tells us that it passes through 1 and 3, that means we can plug this into this equation right here. So what does it look like? 3 is equal to 1/2 times 1 plus b, which means b is equal to, which means 3 is equal to 1/2 plus b, and b is just subtract 1/2. That's going to be 2.5, okay? So our equation is going to, at the end, look something like this. Y is equal to 1f(x) plus 2.5, okay? So how do we find out what the g of 0 is? You just plug it in. So g of 0 is going to be 1/2 of 0 plus 2.5. So g of 0 is 0 plus 2.5, which is 2.5. Therefore, our answer is just 2.5. Okay. Okay, so that's going to be it, guys. That was the just detailed explanation of every single question that showed up on this section 3 and what was going through my head when I was solving it. If you guys liked the video and found it helpful, make sure you guys hit the like button. And if you guys love this kind of content and would love to see more, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button, because I release this kind of content every single week. Some things that can really help you guys raise your SAT score. So if you're in high school, or you're trying to raise your SAT score, or you just want to go to the college of your dreams, I would highly recommend subscribing to the channel. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions or concerns, or if there was a question that wasn't fully explained enough, or you just don't kind of understand it 100%, leave it in the comment section down below and I'll make sure to go and answer your questions. And as always, if there's something you guys want to see next, make sure you drop it in the comment box below, because the videos that I make for this channel is solely based on what you guys want to see. Anyways, guys, I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye-bye.
So no bullshit, girl, nothing extra. Girl, I ain't playing games. I wanna take your whole